You know, it's always a tremendous pleasure for us to cite local folks who've gone on to bigger things. Bill Pullman comes to mind, Vic Baker, and a whole lot of others. A guy that went to ESPN. I mean, it's just a long list. Well, Pat Crissy, who graduated, I think, in the early 80s, I'll have to find out, from Hornell High School, has gone on now to become a science fiction writer. So we're going to talk to Pat about how he got into all that stuff and what his book is called and what it's about. Stay tuned.
It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA. Here's Kevin Torres.
Okay, Pat, can you hear me all right?
Yes, Kevin. Good morning.
Where are you, by the way? Kansas?
I'm down in Fort Myers, Florida.
Florida. It's funny, I called you to line up this show some time ago. I thought you were in Kansas.
No, sir. I would. That's one place I don't think I'd ever want to live. It's just Tornado Alley, kind of. That word just kind of scares me.
Yeah, well, you know, Florida has some share of problems too, pal, with hurricanes. You ever been hit by the hurricanes?
Yeah, many times. I've been here since 1986 and been through many, many hurricanes, and you just become accustomed to getting ready. That's what you have to do. You have to be ready and use your head.
Let's establish who you are. Your mom, your late mom, God rest her, your dad, where you grew up, what year you graduated from good old HHS.
Let's see. I graduated from Hornell High School in 1976.
76.
My mother, Sarah, and my father, James, who's still alive and with us, thank God, lives up there in RD2.
I always knew your mother as Sally, not Sarah.
Oh, yeah, I was one of the few people who ever called her Sarah. As a matter of fact, when I was, I think in my early teens, I started calling her Sarah, and it just, it really got her tickled. It was kind of funny.
Was that her real name?
Yes, her real name was Sarah.
But she grew up with people calling her Sally, huh?
Yep, she did. Because she was named after her mother, so her mother was Sarah, and she was Sally.
Okay. Oh, I see, to avoid confusion. That's,
yep.
You know, you call the juniors, is it Big Bob or Little Bob or Bob the Third? Yeah. Okay, yep. So we've got you established. I had you graduating in the 80s. You graduated way back in 1976. So let me see now. Have you had your 50th?
Oh, God, no. You made my heart stop a little bit.
Have you ever come home for the reunions?
No, I've never gotten home for a reunion. I just I don't know why. There's no excuse.
Well, you know, it's an interesting thing. When you get to your 50th, I think you probably will. Those of you that are still left, well, you'll want to see what the other guys look like and whether those beautiful girls are still beautiful. You know how that goes.
Yeah, well, it's always interesting when I come back home and I run into people in restaurants and on the street and shopping. It's always enjoyable.
So you do come home from time to time?
Oh, absolutely, yes, always.
Okay, now, we won't get into what you've done for a living because I know you haven't done it as a writer, but something drew you to writing and something drew you, Pat Crissy, class of 76, to science fiction writing. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, I can give you a little bit of a backstory. I grew up, like most people, watching The Twilight Zone and Star Trek and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and Lost in Space, and I really enjoyed all those things as a young kid growing up, and always had a fascination with science fiction, really, you know, the old adage, what is out there and where do we come from and where are we going kind of thing. And I remember when Independence Day, the movie came out with Will Smith and Bill Pullman. I remember going to that movie and coming out of that movie and just saying, oh my gosh, that is just the greatest movie, and I was so thrilled by it. But you know, there's a side of me that said it could never really happen. And I said to myself, you know, we have to accept the fact that if aliens do exist and they come here, they're going to be light years ahead of us in technology. And in essence, we could never compete against them. How could we stand a chance against someone so superior? So I said to myself, why doesn't somebody write a science fiction book that is believable, where it really could be happening? And, you know, that kind of planted a seed in my head. And then many, many years later, like 4 years ago, I was at a funeral, believe it or not, of my wife at the time. Her distant cousin is a director in Hollywood. Been that way for about 20 years. And we spent the whole day together, the entire family, naturally, because we were at a funeral. But you just find yourself with hours of nothing to talk about, and it's, you're just trying to talk about anything that doesn't make you feel uncomfortable. So I dropped a line to him and said, hey, I'd like to pitch you this movie idea I've had for a little while and see what you think about it. And I would like to see it as a movie. And we started talking, and I pitched him the idea, and he just absolutely looked at me, and he said, you are crazy if you don't write that. He goes, no one's ever looked at that from that point of view. He goes, I see what you're saying. It would be a great series. It would be a great television show. It would be a great movie. He goes, you got to do it. You got to write it. So he gave me his card, and that kind of inspired me. And I don't know, just about 2 years ago, I sat down one day, don't ask me why, and I just started writing it. And it just, the more I got into it, the more I liked it. And it just evolved into this Volume 1 of a Volume 3 series, and it's just absolutely been a kind of a dream come true.
So Volume 1 is the one we're talking about?
Yes, and Volume 1 is out there right now.
And I guess now it's about time to tell them the name of the book.
Oh, the name of the book is Interference, and it's available right now on Amazon.com in both paperback form and on Kindle for all the ebook readers out there.
I'm going to hold out to be the last one to go to Kindle. I really am. But I wouldn't be surprised if someday that'll be the only choice. Really, I mean that. So the name of the book is Interference, and I told you I don't like to interview somebody after I've read the book, because if I do that, I'm more likely not to ask the questions that the listeners might ask. But I cheated, and I've gone through the book a little bit, and I know some of the plot. We don't want to give it away, but I'm going to allow you now to do a little bit of that to get, the interest peaked in this. Pat Crissy, class of 76. Go ahead.
Well, I can give you a little synopsis of what it's about. It's really about one man and how he learns the secrets of alien interference with the human race since the beginning of the Earth. And how that happens is we have an American soldier who's involved in black ops, kind of like your Navy SEAL Team 6. And he's very secretive, and they go into wherever they're told. They do whatever they're told, whether it be assassinations or extractions or helping to overtake certain governments and all around the world. And he finds himself abducted and captured by these aliens. And the aliens is called the Morphron race, and the Morphron race is the most powerful race in the universe. And their conquest, which is to take over the entire universe, no matter what. And they're hunters, and they also engage in hunting other species for sport. And what they do is they control the entrances to all wormholes in the universe. They figured out that all travel in the space is through wormholes. And if they controlled the entrances to wormholes, they could control space travel.
Are you saying wormholes? Worm as in?
Wormholes, yes.
Glowworm? No kidding. Why are they calling it wormholes? Just, I mean, I've read the term, but why wormholes?
Well, wormholes is a theory that people have that going into wormholes would allow you to space jump to great distances within space.
Okay, I got you. All right, go ahead.
So if you were able to control the entrances to those, you would be the most powerful person in the universe. And by doing that, they could send their armies wherever they wanted throughout the universe. Well, lo and behold, when they came upon Earth, as many aliens have over the thousands of years, they noticed one thing that really shocked them. And they noticed that we were the only species, the only planet in the entire universe where people kill their own kind. And to them, it's unthinkable. We are the only alien life form that kills itself, wages war with itself. And to them, it's unthinkable. So they call us the unbrains, which is kind of a big insult because they cannot comprehend that we would do this to each other. So what happens is one alien race tells another alien race that, hey, you've got to come see this. You have to come watch this. Well, one promoter who works for the Morphron race decides that he could make a lot of money using this, and he convinces the king of the Morphron race to make it surround the Earth, protect the Earth, and just like a pay-per-view, allow other alien life forms to come in here and pay to observe. And we are like a zoo to them. We're like a reality show. And all the other alien forms pay the Morphrons to come and visit and sometimes interfere for big bucks.
Well, you gave away more than I thought you would, but we'll take a break and be back with Pat Crissy whose dad, Jim Crissy, where does Jim live now? North Hornell.
It's right out there in RD2.
Oh, he's still up at RD2.
Yeah.
Okay. But you people lived in Hornell. The Crissys lived in Hornell for a while, didn't they?
Yeah, back and forth, yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what street. Was it Genesee, Pearl? Was it? Where
Used to be Genesee a long time ago, and then it was Collier Street.
Collier, that's right. Okay, Collier, yeah. Okay, we'll be back with Pat Crissy and sci-fi writer who's getting some great reviews and hopes to be able to turn all of this into a movie or perhaps a TV series. Why not? We'll be back in just a moment.
The Ryan Agency for all your insurance needs.
That smell, that mouth-watering scent when you walk into your donut shop. Look at those glazed, frosted, and jelly-filled donuts. They're begging to be boxed up just for you. How do you choose? But that's half the fun. Picking the right insurance may not be quite as much fun. But just like picking that perfect donut, insurance tastes better when you pick the right plan. You see, some insurance types work for just one company and can offer choice. But the Ryan Agency is your local independent agency, offering options from many top insurance companies. Box up your insurance to include the right price, coverage, and service. Let good people help you make smart choices. Choose to save smart with the Ryan Agency.
Insurance protection you can rely on. The Ryan Agency.
It's a look behind the headlines. It's the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran on AM 1480 WLEA.
Before we went on the air with Pat, I was telling him that last Thursday night, our email went down for most of the station. Our website went down a couple weeks before that. And I was forced, just an old disc jockey, you know, and I was forced to talk to computer geeks all over the country. One referring me to the other, trying to get this thing up and going. And Brian O'Neill, our news guy, had the moxie to get the website up. But getting the email back again, that was not so easy. And I must say, Pat, I have to admit this, I shouted some bad words. In frustration. Have you ever spent a whole day and a half talking to computer geeks?
Many, many times. I'm a business consultant by trade, and a lot of times I go into businesses and I help them with their websites, and it is just a lesson.
Well, at least these guys weren't in Pakistan, India, or the Philippines. They were all, one was in Canada, the rest were in this country, but I got to tell you, pal, they don't think or talk like the rest of humanity. I wonder if I was talking to some Morphin character from your book.
You might be.
Now, first of all, you hope this book, which is getting good reviews in the sci-fi community, you're hoping that this director friend of yours, or fellow you met some years ago, out in Hollywood, would be able to translate this into a movie or, let's face it, more money in it probably, a TV series. Is that right?
Yeah, it would be great. I mean, I always had the movie idea first, but I thought, how does a person like, your average everyday person get a movie made? So I thought my chances were better if I wrote a book, and then it got out there, and hopefully someone who knows someone would read it and somehow get back to me, and we would be able to make a deal with somebody. I've had a couple different people who have read the book who've come back to me and just going, oh my gosh, you just got to hang on to these movie rights forever. And I was like, no, that's not the idea. The idea is to get it out there. But I wrote it with a lot of things in mind. Like, example, I came from Hornell. Bill Pullman came from Hornell. I wrote it specifically. Hornell is in the book.
You're kidding.
Buffalo, New York, where I lived and worked many years, and Buffalo is in the book. And hopefully, if I ever get a movie made, some of it would be filmed in Hornell, and that would help the community. And also, Book 2, Volume 2 has a big role for Hornell, and I don't want to divulge any of that, but has a much bigger role. So hopefully they'd be doing some filming there.
Well, let me tell you, if they brought 10 people in, they'd probably get aid from the Industrial Development Agency. Well, that's amazing. Okay, you can put me down as the old guy that stands there looking amazed at a morphin getting out of a tube or something. By the way, last Saturday, this will interest you, I think. That's why I'm mentioning it. We have a program called Doogie and the Doctor, Bill Dugan and a guy who calls himself the Doctor. And they do an hour-long sports show. Well, Bill was out in Seattle being honored for being on the first big Seattle team, I think, in 1983, and they had him all back. So we didn't have that show. The Doctor was away, too. So we ran The War of the Worlds by Orson Welles. Have you ever listened to it?
I've never actually listened to the whole thing, no, but it's awesome.
Yeah, well, you know, Orson Welles was a genius. He was only 23 years old when he did that. And then I happened to watch a PBS special a couple nights later about the War of the Worlds and how he got out of it, because it was almost the end of his career. And actually he turned it around, so it became the beginning of his career until he ran up against William Randolph Hearst. But that's a different story. But nevertheless, the War of the Worlds, and you can get it on Amazon, by the way, if anyone wants to hear it. This was the 75th anniversary, as you probably know, for that famous or infamous radio show. Okay, so now we have the Morphins out there. This is a race of aliens. We call them aliens. They probably call us aliens. And they're amazed that humans kill each other. It's the only race in the universe where they kill their own kind, right?
Absolutely.
And so what they're in effect doing is setting up a zoo to watch what happens in the world. And I know that the guy, your lead character, is a special ops guy who actually is able to, in some ways, outsmart these Morphins, right?
Yeah, he's the first guy. He goes up, he gets abducted, and he's told that he's going to be put in a life or death match, which has been going on since the beginning of time. But he, carefully starts thinking, because that's the only weapon he has at that time is thinking. And he convinces them, he coerces them into making it a fair fight. It's never been a fair fight. It's always been their weapons against our weapons. And he convinces them that they need to make it a fair fight. Well, they do. I don't want to reveal that, but they do. And he starts winning, and they cannot believe it. And for the first time ever, a human has killed a Morphron warrior. So as a result of that, he gets little favors handed to them, and they think he's going to die any day, so they don't mind giving him little favors. And one of the little favors is they put him on a machine called the neuron transpiler, which is kind of like the movie The Matrix. They hook him up to it, and they stimulate his brain, and when they do that, they can download files directly from their computer into his brain, giving him instant abilities, instant knowledge on the history of Earth, and increasing his abilities. And they don't really pay attention to him because, again, they think he's going to die, but they don't realize that they are genetically changing him. And he becomes basically a Superman. So what's interesting is he learns the entire secrets of the history of interference with aliens since the beginning of time, such as who really sunk the Titanic and who really interfered and prevented the Cuban Missile Crisis, things of that nature. And also it explains the abductions of very famous historians throughout the Earth's history.
Well, it sounds, especially if you're a science fiction fan, like a tremendous read. If you're not a science fiction fan and you know Pat Crissy, it makes a especially good read because you know the guy. Hornell is in it. There will be a, please God, Volume 2 and Volume 3, and Hornell plays a bigger part there. So, who knows? You may put us on the map like Orson Welles put, I think it was, I can't remember the name of the town, some little town in New Jersey where the aliens landed, right? Well, listen, Pat, all the best. The name of the book, again, is Interference. Pat Crissy, whose father, Jim, dines frequently at McDonald's. I know because I see him there.
There you go.
And he and I go back a long way. And I hope that you do very well with the book. And I hope, you know, someday we see this TV series.
I hope so, too, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No, our pleasure entirely. Thank you very much. Pat Crissy, class of 1976, a business consultant who's actually gone on to write a science fiction thriller. I used to be big reading science fiction. I got away from it somehow. Maybe I ought to go back. I do have the book, and I have been cheating. I usually don't read it before I talk to the guest, but I was intrigued by some of it, and I did get into it a little bit. Well, anyway, that's it for today's program. Stay tuned now for more news and information on AM 1480 WLEA. Don't forget that important meeting coming up tomorrow night on the Common Core curriculum with Dr. Mark Garrison, and that will be in Alfred tomorrow night.